Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Ra. Alongside me tonight from Central Florida, I have Professor Pixel the Young, 20-something, co-anchoring with me on our Dark Shadows episode-by-episode relay of the Revival 1991 series. And, of course, from the Great Midwest, who covers all the action stuff with me, I have RDV, too. And, guys, this has been a long time coming because this is a movie that as a kid, I remember watching and having very strong opinions about. It's a Disney film that people may not realize called Dragonslayer from 1981, and one of Ralph Richardson's um, last roles. He's an incredible actor, definitely high on the food chain. It's a British movie, which means it's probably automatically better than anything American done, especially at the time. But guys, the one thing I wanted to mention here, as before we get into our initial review, is this. I understand it's a first watch for you both. For me, I haven't seen it since the mid '80s. Holy crap! I forgot how good Disney products could be. And even though here at the Pine Hills Palace, just a short stone's throw away from the man with the mouse, and down here from Central Florida, we both know you don't mess with the mouse, culturally speaking. Disney in no way, shape, or form looks like it did from the 70s and 80s in terms of the studio, the parks, the experience, everything. So hopefully with a lot of the comic book crowd and Disney crowd that will be joining us here tonight, and the fans that you guys bring in from your other channels, which I'm sure you'll mention tonight, it's pretty interesting to go, holy crap, this is a very good film. It's excellent, actually. And honestly, it's one of the best movies, I think, in terms of fantasy and adventure we talk about that's not completely juvenile or a B film, because it's definitely got adult themes in it. It's dark for Disney, but they were trying to do that with the Black Hole and other movies at the time. And I think it's just, it blew me away how much better it was than what I remembered, because I remember liking going, oh, this is a little different. It's not Disney. It's like mature Disney. It's beautifully shot. And guys, I'm going to argue right now, and we can bring this up as we discuss the film. I still think it's one of the better dragons we've ever seen on TV, because the sets and the lack of CGI, the practical effects are phenomenal. RDV, since you do all the action stuff here, and you have very strong opinions about the current slate of Disney type movies, Marvel and DC, I'd like to go to you first before we go to Pixel, who's younger and gonna be giving us the young person's view on Disney films. Go ahead, RDV.
This was a first watch for me, as you just said. Yeah. It is not what I expected. I've seen parts. I've seen clips of where him versus the dragon. So I knew the scales thing was going to come into play on the shield, which I thought was really ingenious because
Yeah.
you don't really see that unless you're playing a video game or maybe like Dungeon Dragons, which kind of felt like a little bit like a Dungeon Dragons in a little sense. I mean, there's no really party, but I love the fact that most movies would have had the main character, who's like the apprentice, going up there going against the dragon. They would have had him teaming up with the king Tyrion,
Hmm.
who is the king's knight, the one who basically who killed the wizard and stuff. But this movie, yeah, they made the main knight, the main an evil bastard. And so not only did he go against dragon, he had to go against an evil, a knight, and yeah, so the odds were stacked against him, which I liked because, like I said, typically you don't see that.
Yeah.
Um, Overall, like you said, I had no idea this was ever Disney until I actually looked at the credit of the thing. I was like, oh my god, like
So
Disney
even when you
actually?
started, you didn't realize it was a Disney production,
No, no. It was distributed by Buena Vista International.
which like Buena Vista was the
Yeah,
area that
yeah,
became, Reedy
yeah.
Creek's a part of it, so and all that down here in Central Florida, huh?
But yeah, yeah. So stand out, and the other thing that really stood out to me is that well, you have Peter Nickel,
Of the
most
McNichol family, gentlemen with Christie and others.
yeah. He is mostly known for Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, he's that goofy
That's
dude in it.
yeah. So he plays the main character Galen, and I thought he did well in this. Uh, Even Caitlin Clark. Now this is she plays Valerian. She's a girl posing as a boy because of the King's Lottery, because they sacrifice women to the dragon, the peasant, and she was posing as a boy. Now, when her character first appears, I know, and I said to myself, wow, that boy's really feminine looking. Like, what the heck is going on here? It's like, maybe maybe he's a really pretty boy. And then when you find out it's actually the girl posing as a boy, and so does he, because that's where you get your nudity. You see it because he swims under the water. She's taking a bath, and you discover, oh, she's not a boy.
Yeah, and
Um,
we see that in nudity in a Disney film. Are
yeah,
you kidding
yeah,
me?
I know, right? The production on this levels, as far as like, the props. Now there was some CG, yes, with the dragon, towards the end, with
They
the,
should have got a real dragon.
Stop it.
they could have got a real dragon, but he was busy sleeping. Uh, no, and yeah, and even at the end, you get the little baby dragons. They're tearing apart the princess who's
I
been
love
killed.
it.
Oh my gosh, it's like,
Flesh-eating baby dragon
yes,
in a Disney
yes.
film.
I
That's
was like,
tremendous.
where was this in the Godzilla '96? No, but overall, it's a good soundtrack for a movie that came out in 1981. I love Hawk the Slayer, but this is more like a series version.
Yeah, agreed. Pixel, you're the young 20-something here. You guys, both of you on your other channels do a lot of comic book readings, and you cover a lot of movie stuff, and some of the shows you cover are a little bit different than
Mhm.
my taste, and so we sometimes collaborate on those things. But as a first watch for you and a big fan of this kind of stuff, what's your take on it?
So I didn't know what to expect going into Dragonslayer, other than the fact that there would be a dragon and there would be some slaying. I feel like this is a very good movie, honestly. I think that the practical effects, I loved them. I loved the dragon puppets. They were great. I also think that I liked the cast, and I liked how they were interacting. I think there is one thing that I would critique, and that's the pacing of it. I feel like there were cuts, like where entire scenes were like, okay, we got to slim this down, guys, and they wanted to go ahead and cut to, okay, you're here. All right. Oh, by the way, this gym is suddenly working. And hi, guys. And it just cut parts from it to me. But it didn't make it bad. I think that it's very entertaining. Like I said, the dragons were good. I don't know. I don't know if I wanted the princess to die, though.
Well, that's one thing we'll get into here in a
She's
moment.
noble.
But the two things about it that I'll just get back to you guys here is that when you talk about the length of films, they were generally a little longer back then. Not these 85 to 90-minute things where even still there's filler. So I understand it, but also too, the print that I saw or the copy that I have is quote unquote the extended cut, which has about 5 minutes in it. But that's where you see like some extra gore, for lack of a better term, where this would have actually been a rated R film, except for they cut a few things out too. So they may have chopped a few things out, but overall, I know you've mentioned it before on some older movies that you felt like it went a little longer. There was extra padding to it, but this is at a time when, because not all films are longer, but the fantasy thing with Flash Gordon, with Excalibur, which some people loved and some people didn't think was actually that good. But of course, that's one we're getting ready to cover at some point here on the Extreme Movie Show. We got a lot of good stuff coming on here. And yes, we've done Barbarian Queen, and the gore movies and a bunch of things that are the B and C level camp stuff for its own reasons. But this feels like everybody tried to, as you mentioned before with the cast, Ralph Richardson's phenomenal as the old wizard here. He's not a stupid, dumb old wizard or one that's really kind of leveled down or whatever like that. I think the guy's acting job's phenomenal. So McNichol in the lead role, I thought did a good job of kind of being like this dude bro surfer, but almost kind of cool guy that realizes, no shit, I'm really stepping into the big boy world, and I don't know what the hell to do. And I kind of like that too, because everybody around him needs to be an adult, and it is, because really with the virgin sacrifice is a result of the king's ability to have a deal with this dragon. And early on we get the history of the dragons, how there's a whole bunch of them. It's a nice little description, and how there's very few of them, so they're old and they're cranky, and how there's a lottery system, and so they don't get too much into it. And I'm certainly not turning this into a current day conversation, but it's interesting how there's a lot of parallels about how if you're rich and powerful, you can be kept off of the list and this and that. And some of those themes are really timeless, but it's not the meat and potatoes of it. It's a coming of age film. We get to see him suffer through some things, and he's got a group of people with him, and it's a traveling film. And when you have those elements together, generally it can be very good. But man, I would put this film out in theaters today versus almost anything coming out. I still think it would hold up. I think it's that good. Now, RDV, you and I have covered some schlocky items and some weird ones and some offbeat stuff. We love our ninja movies and canon films of the 80s. Right now, with some of the 80s stuff we've covered, does anything come to mind for you about what you want to talk about? Any scenes come up?
Oh man, like I said, I love this from the very beginning with the wizard when there's the simple things like they use a string to pull the satchel over, and just to make the doors close. When he locks Galen inside the tower because he knows he's gonna die. It's just the simple things like that. And then when Galen goes to like by the water, he sees reflection, and this seeing the like what's going to happen, the future and stuff,
Right.
And then when he goes over they find the Dragonslayer, and just a dragon at the beginning of this movie. You don't really see it. You maybe see a tail, and you get the real dread of suspense. There's the one
Yes.
the sacrifice. You see the smoke, you hear the rumbling, and you hear and then you see she barely. I think the horse is left there. Everybody else left. No, the horse runs free. She gets one hand out of the shackle. She's about to get the other one out of there, and then she escapes and runs, and then she gets burned to a crisp. But not before the tail grabs her, keeps her from knocking over, and like it's just like I was like, oh my gosh, it's like, and I'm thinking like almost, and then just nope. Later on, you see Galen with the group, and he causes an avalanche, and they're like, "Hey, they're celebrating all this stuff," and it's like I'm thinking like
He screws up.
yeah. Well, to his thing, he's like, they sealed it off, so he figured like it'll just But the dragon, being the dragon, because he's the big bad dragon, and he's also magic too, because it's revealed later on that they're tied together, or at least we're told to by the blacksmith. Once magic's gone, the dragon will be gone. It's just everything they and the what you're gonna call it, special effects, doing the props and stuff. It just shows you don't need CG as much as you need in a movie. If you have a good story, which people love fantasy stories.
Yep.
If you rely only on star power versus the actual good story, your movie's gonna fail. You can have the best stars, but if you don't have a good story that people want. Right now, the people want a sword and sorceries, but they don't want this where like they tried to do the Conan the Barbarian, but they didn't realize what made Conan the Barbarian special. It was Arnold. It was everything that's in that movie. Just the way they wrote it, the pace, everything. That's what people liked. And then they said, like, it's just today, you're not allowed to do certain things like you were back then. That's why you don't see a lot of movies like this.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I think that one of the things that makes this pretty interesting, and I've said it before, is that some films you can watch it and it's pure popcorn. It's one note. You can just watch it for something like if you're in the mood for comedy, you can watch like Ace Ventura if that's your type, or there's something about Mario's really big for a long time. Farley Brother movies, you know what you're going to get, and that's cool. This movie you can watch as an adult, you can watch as a kid, and I think it treats the story of what a teenager, which is supposed to expect it to be a young man, seriously. Where we see the main wizard here early on, when he has the guy, who calls him out, he's like, "You're a fraud, you're a charlatan." And when he's like, "There's not gonna be tests," it's like, "Oh no, there will be one." And he tells his apprentice to go get it. Then he locks him in there with his magic, and he has the guy basically kill him with the dagger. The guy had a master plan. He wasn't just an idiot. He knew what he was doing. But at the same time, in addition to the plan, he was allowing his apprentice to sit there and say, "You know what? I've been telling you to hit your books. I've been telling you to study. We're going to see, what you know. Go be a man. Go do what you need to do." And he's got a support system with him, and it's good because you get a sense that, okay, this is that generic storytelling we talk about, like the hero story, Joseph Campbell, about overcoming odds, and it's universal in all cultures, no matter what specifics you tie it to culturally. And I think it's very obvious here too. He's not quite proficient in his magic, and he has some of it, and he's not confident in it, and he thinks he's doing the right thing. And then even though he screws up and all the boulders block it up, and he tells the king instead, we know the king's going to be a son of a bitch about it, because it turns out, and again, this is after the first act, the dragon's not dead by this because he
No.
gets pissed off, comes out, ravishes the town, and it's brutal. And then we find out all the political stuff, and the boy's like, "Oh shit, what did I get into here?
I liked how the dragon, there, because whatever reason they were there, like everybody's gathered outside the cave where the dragon is. I'm like, why would you go there? Like, you know, and of course the dragon just causes the earthquake. People fall in, and then he goes after the priests.
I think the best part of it, talking mostly about the dragon puppet that they are using, I think the best part of it is, like Steven Spielberg would say on Jaws, you don't need to show the full thing.
Exactly.
You wait and you take your time to go ahead and reveal it for the key moments. You have the tail and that one claw hand that they have that goes ahead and steps down, and it's enough to go ahead and let your imagination run wild. Like when the camera goes up and it's looking down at the one girl, the first virgin that you described, and it lights her aflame. It's brilliant just because of how they're handling it. They realize we need to go ahead and save our big boy, our key piece, and I'm really appreciative of that.
What did we think of the potential love triangle? Because the king's daughter's actually not a complete airhead once she realized and felt she had her Karen guilt, I guess, if you want to call it that in today's terms, where she's like, oh, my name's been kept out. Well, I'm really not any better than everybody else that's a virgin. Because obviously people valued their virginity back then too. And
I wouldn't say Karen guilt. She wasn't really Karen. She
wasn't. I'm half joking here, but the point is you normally don't get somebody that's growing up in a privileged environment sit there and say, yeah, I kind of get that. I'm not, I should have been on the list to be sacrificed, but I'm really glad my dad did it. And I will say this about the king, even though he was a selfish prick, the bottom line is what would you do as a father? Because in the moment there, what I thought was good acting and not being a one-note character, he's explaining to the apprentice, hey, look, I would do anything I can to save my daughter. You got to understand that's just how it is. But because now she's going to be a part of it, and she actually made it where she was the one that was selected, it was like, that was an angle I forgot about and I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, it gave her, instead of just being, oh yeah, the hot princess daughter that the guy might fall in love with, or like that, it gave her a little bit of depth to it, which added to the quote unquote romance angle that he's got at the end about who he really loves.
I gotta say, I was shocked it was actually the princess. I thought it was gonna be Caitlin was gonna be going up there.
Yeah.
His actual love interest, because and that to me that would have been much more like devastating, because we know what happens to the princess now, him going in there and just like but but I mean, like overall, I do like the fact that the prince is there because people do die and he's he makes mistakes. He's not just in there. It's like, I have the power, and then instantly he doesn't make mistakes.
I have the power.
But that would be a club hit for a few more years, guys.
And then I'm like, he's battling the dragon. He's like, there's still 20 minutes left. Like, what the hell? That was the other thing. I was like, I'm like, because you see him, he stabs the dragon in the neck. I'm thinking, like, is it gonna like try to like use its flame power and the heads would explode?
Wasn't enough. But that does bring me to talking about the end and how the old wizard knew he wouldn't be able to survive the journey, so he made sure that we would make the journey for him. And then they're able to summon him back.
He used the force, okay? It was a force battle.
But I love that the old guy is basically just a bomb.
What do you mean?
He's just a bomb.
He's got a very small wand to shoot, and he does it here at the end. And he's using his brain because he can't use his body because he couldn't make the journey. So
no, not that. Not that.
He was more like End of Light, wasn't he?
He tells him whenever he's using the last of his magic and the dragon is swiping him, oh, look, there's blood. The dragon finally picks him up with his claw, carries him, and he says, it's time. And his apprentice smashes the amulet and he blows up. He's just a bomb.
That's good shit.
Oh, I think it was great. Okay, you said bomb. I thought you're calling a bum.
I heard bum too.
I know, that's what I was confused.
I'm like, wait,
you're a bum, Rock. You're a bum.
You got the harp, but you ain't got the tools. No, I thought it was great. I agree with you.
Oh my gosh! Now I want Billy Crystal. He's mostly dead.
I want to talk a little bit about was it Caitlin? I guess his love affair.
Yeah, I thought that was Joe from The Facts of Life at first.
That's Nancy McCon, and no, that's not her.
I know, but
but I see the resemblance because, especially with the haircut, because that that ice skater's haircut was so popular. Whose name escapes me right now. Hamill, was it, or whatever? Dorothy Hamill. She's gorgeous. And at first, when I saw this as a kid, I had no idea that they could make a woman or a female look like a male like this. And I'm not trying to get into modern day conversations, but we're talking about the movie here. And so when we gets revealed in a little bit of nudity in the scene, it's kind of funny because the girl's like, I was careless. I don't blame you for it. I just blame myself. And it was smart because her father, who's the smith in the village, made her be like a boy or dress like it so she wouldn't be on it. So you get to see how, if you're not privileged and you come from that kind of a background, how you can still use your brain to figure out how to deal with things. And I thought that was a nice little angle. So obviously we know that's going to be the romance, right? And at the end, when she makes them, and it had already been brought up, but I want to touch on it too. I think it's cute, but it's good and wholesome in a nice way. She's making a shield out of the dragon's scales that she was collecting around the mouth of the entrance. And we saw them early on in the scene, and it's a simple, cheap effect, right? But it works. She goes, I don't know if this will help you. So basically, we know she's interested, not because of the longing looks and all that stuff, but because as a woman, she's making him a gift. And the kid doesn't recognize it. And he's not actually arrogant. He's just a little ignorant. And she's like, you're in love, aren't you? And he's like, yeah, I am. And we're like, oh, geez, where's this going? And he sits down and he comforts her. And it was a nice little touching scene where he's like, but it's not with the princess.
Imagine if they were
It's
casted.
with you.
Imagine if they
I was like, that's good. That way they handled that was good.
Imagine if they would have had Harrison Ford instead of Galen
yeah, he'd be high every scene he's in because that's Harrison. But just saying.
He'd basically be like, I know.
I know exactly, right? Watch this. No, but the ending was a little bit whimsical, and I liked it too, where they're walking off to seek their own journey. And there was a line in there early on where when they thought that they weren't going to defeat the dragon in the final battle, because in the 80s you can't just end it on one. She's like, you said you love me, and if that's the only good that we have, then we need to leave now. I'm like, oh, come on. You guys haven't even technically officially sealed the deal yet, had relations. And you're already manipulating him and making him feel guilty because a man's got to do what a man's got to do. And of course, she supports him. She makes the shield. They're in love, and they go to walk off at the end. And she says something, and he's like, yeah, I just only kind of wish we had a horse. Because she's basically saying, I love you. I don't care if you suck and you don't have any real powers. I love you for you. And of course, a horse comes over at the end, and they're freaking out a little bit, and they ride off. And I thought that was cute. But this reminds me a lot of 80 movies, especially the Charles Bronson one that you and I have covered here, RDV 10 to Midnight. And hear me out. This is perfectly acceptable way to connect these things. Soon as the main thing that happens is supposed to happen at the end, dragon's dead in 30 seconds. They're getting the horse laughing and riding off. The movie ends just like at 10 to Midnight when they shoot the guy. Boom, roll the credits. You're done. That's such an 80s thing too, and I loved it. But yeah, it was done very well. All of it.
Getting more into special effects on this, this is where you can find these. I'm finding this up through IMDb. It's really cool. The trivia says this is the first movie to use go motion, a variant of stop motion animation in parts with the model. It's basically the dragon were mechanized, and they basically had the movement was programmed by a computer. During the shooting, the computer moves the model, and while the camera is shooting, resulting in motion blur, which makes the animation more convincing. So that was kind of cool. The fact that they actually had you see the foot, and then you see the tail, and then you see the fire, but you don't see the dragon. Like you said, what Pixel said before. That is nerve-wracking because it's just like Jurassic Park. Remember how they do that? They'd show you it first, and then before they reveal
the Godzilla template. And some people say, no, I want to see all of the monster, more of it.
Well, yeah. Now that's a different story. If you didn't see it at the end,
Yeah, you do need to eventually see the monster.
Yeah, they eventually do get to see the dragon's face when he eats the priest, or basically burns him first.
He burned it to a crisp. That was cool looking.
And you see the doll fall over. But and of course then the rest becomes it's kind of like a CG thing when they show the animation, and I was like, this is like Gandalf versus the dragon at this point. Gandalf get up the gray, they grant up the white.
That is basically what he did. No, it's fine. It's fine because
Yeah.
because George R. Martin stole from this too. Everybody steals from everybody.
Just like
Valerian,
Disney steals from
Tyrion.
everything and the copyrights
So-
it, you know.
So,
Well, no, they buy everything, Rob.
Yeah, so
That's what they do
another
now.
really cool thing, because we're talking about the setting and the props, they actually were in a real castle.
Yeah.
Golden Castle, which is over in England.
Yep.
They actually use that for the setting, which is really cool because a lot of times you just get a stage and they just build it, take a look. But they actually use it for like the first part. You see him, he's inside the castle, and you see them walking up, and just with the door and stuff. So that was kind of cool. The other thing is really cool because this movie was at first, I guess it was kind of a flop at first. I think it didn't make its budget, but later on it became a cult hit. So much that by 1983 they did the Dragonslayer game.
Yeah.
With the Disney guys.
And honestly, so I'll segue into that. Don Bluth was I think the lead designer on that, and that was the first, to my knowledge, growing up in arcades and pinball machines places in the 70s and 80s, bars and all that. That was the first 50-cent game, and the Chuck E. Cheese had a roped-off thing with the one game set up on a pedestal, like you're a whale at a high-end casino, and it was Dragonslayer, and there was a line going out the door to see it. And I'm serious about it. And here in Central Florida, we used to have a chain called the Fun Machine that had all that amusement park crap in it, and that was the big deal, and people would line up for it to do it. And the reason why it was so important, and this is when I kind of rage against how Disney's not really old Disney, because I grew up here in Central Florida where you could go and walk around the park and not have to pay anything, but you'd only pay, for the quote unquote Disney money to ride the rides. And the thing that made it really special was the high level artistic quality that they would do with their movies, with the hand drawn cells and all that. And if you're unfamiliar with any of that and you're a big Disney fan or comic book fan, and I know you guys talk about comic book art a little bit too when you do your readings and other reviews, it's something that I miss. Because it would only be a year or two later after this that they would have The Secret of NIMH, which I think is another phenomenal Disney movie. They had already done The Black Hole, which is a bit more adult-like. And it makes me go, it's capable of being done. That talent hasn't gone away. It's not like it's a lost skill. But with everything being CGI or in computer games, hey, which engine are you using, is not the same thing as designing something and storytelling, which gets lost, I think, on a young generation, because they grow up not seeing a lot of that. And that's why here on Extreme Movie Show, when we talk about these different things, I try to put in a little bit of context, because you're absolutely right there, RDV. With all the stuff going on in the 80s, we joke about some of the fashion, but we compare it, and all of a sudden we start going, hey, here's some themes. How do they compare to things that are going on today in films, and why do we like them or not? And that's kind of the fun discussions that we never know where we're going with it here too. Final thoughts, guys, about the final battle or the movie in general, or how it compares to anything that we've talked about?
Blow up the old man.
I want to show you this. This is cool. That's coming out on Steel.
Bankman, we talked about this. You can't show that on camera.
The
Blu-ray?
Yes. Yep. I'm sharing my screen if you want to prove it.
Oh yeah, it's showing.
All right. Dude, this is for like $26. Now, this is on Amazon. I already seen it going, it's supposed to come out in March. So this is the steel case, and man, I usually don't buy steel cases, but this looks awesome, doesn't it? Man,
it looks fantastic. It really does. Wow.
Yeah, like I said, and if you don't own this movie, now you can. It's just going to be 4K, then Blu-ray, and then digital code. So,
so you own it across all platforms. Because when you buy something off Amazon, you technically don't own the movie. You own the rights for that and to distribute it to it as they see fit, as long as they want to be able to do it. It's not a physical copy.
So this will be a physical copy with the digital code. You can use it for movies anywhere, or Vudu, whatever you want to. Yeah. I mean, right now it is available for rent for $4 on Vudu, but you can also buy it for $15. But I would not buy it. If you can hold out for this, get the digital code, and then you're set.
I am going to say Dave is right. You do not want to watch that in high def. You want that low def. So keep the def low, because otherwise it's just not going to be the same.
Sometimes the way it's shot,
surround sound,
you're just not going to get all the. So some of the stuff that you might not notice gets magnified, especially in older films. I think is a thought here.
Maybe you'll be able to tell.
You might see strings or boom.
I'm going to tell you right now, Pixel. Watch it in high def. Have a glass of water, so when the dragon comes out and the speakers vibrate the glass of water,
He's doing the Jurassic Park, but yeah, take a
Yes.
shot every time somebody gets poured into to an unholy
Hold the
crisp beer.
Jello up the line, Jello. and
Why
spoon
would
up your mouth.
I play a game where I'm only going to get to drink 3 shots, huh?
And then the other cool thing about this, this actually was Marvel did an adaptation of it, 2-issue comic.
Very cool.
I found issue 1, so I'm still looking for issue 2. But man, like I said, this is back when Marvel actually adapted like movies, good movies, and like that was it. Now they don't do it anymore. They don't adapt movies.
Well, you see the crossover with books too. I mean, that's the other thing. That's why with you guys covering the comics, I've said, it'd be interesting if something like this that we talk about also had the comic component that we could kind of go back and forth on too.
And also, more of the story: if you're a king, don't make a pact with a dragon. It's not right. How many virgins have to die? 72.
Well, I mean,
right.
Yeah. so overall, he said,
won't go there on the politics. Like we could easily spend an hour or two doing that, but I won't. Pixel, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, well, I mean, they didn't have anybody that could kill the dragon before, so you gotta 2 virgins compared to the entire city. I think there's a choice that has to be made. It's a trolley problem.
I'm gonna say right there, that's the evil problem. That's why the evil bad guy tried to kill Galen for the Dragonslayer instead of being a man nutting up and hey, let's go kick some dragon ass. Don't take the coward's way out.
Well, let's go saying this, guys. Obviously, I think we all agree that it's a great film. It's worth watching. It definitely gives you a different perspective on what Disney was capable as a company of producing. Doesn't mean they're not incapable of it now. Obviously, what sells. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, back then, this was up there with Conan and Excalibur and Flash Gordon, a bunch of fantasy stuff that set a tone for many things that we still have yet to cover here on the Extreme Movie Show. And on that note, obviously, appreciate 6-7 people showing up here tonight. A slightly different crowd. I know DVD Daddy's a big tweeter and responder on some of our notes going out there too. Man. I believe he had put on there some pictures of some of the places that you can go wherever he's at. I want to say Virginia, perhaps, if I've got that right, of these physical places that you go get copies of DVDs cheap, because we certainly advocate that if you guys are passionate about a film, let us know what it is that you'd like us to cover so we can discuss it. One of the key things we do here is we don't really discuss the film at all. We just say, hey, what are we going to do? We talk about it and we put it in some context. So other than Sundays and Tuesday nights, for now, which we've been pretty consistent on for about 3 or 4 years, we're getting close to 1,000 subs. We appreciate that you guys share time with us and give us your opinions and your work, because we try not to blow a piece up bigger than what it is. If it sucks, we'll tell you why. We try not to hate watch or argue or fight, especially if we don't like it or it doesn't make sense. But I really do appreciate the fact that we have 3 different generations here in chat talking about a film, and that you guys spend time with it, being of all different generations, sexes, and backgrounds, that you guys let other people know that we exist. Because as a joke, we kind of did this. It's kind of a rib on ourselves. But now we're like, hey, we're close to 1,000. Let's put a little more realization in it, that there's an audience of people like you that want to spend time talking about these things and what you enjoyed about it. Because when you watch it, and I can talk about the 80s stuff, and RDV talks about the 90s, and whatever Pixel comes up with, I'm always surprised at how the conversation goes. And that's really the seed of what we do here too. So that's all I'm really going to say with it too. Anything else you need to guys need to plug?
Quickly on that Blu-ray thing coming out, the steel case, they actually have new unreleased, never seen footage. They got
makes sense.
Yeah. Oh well. A look back at the impact of Star Wars and its visual effects on Hollywood. An origin of Dragonslayer, screenplays, films, casting. They got screen tests, making the final battle, Into the Lake of Fire. Just the horrific baby dragons and the challenge of creating the lair. And stuff. Yes, Grago and his minions.
Shut up.
It's just so a lot of cool stuff. And it's under $30, and you're getting all that as a nice slip case, steel case, and just man, it's just. So if you're
getting too excited, Bankman, calm down.
You cannot get too excited over a movie like this.
You're going to mess up your new steelbook.
I'll never. What?
I'm not a collector, but you guys are and know people that do it, so I appreciate getting that insight, especially people that know that stuff in detail, because I just have old stuff. Yeah. So
also, if you watch this on TV, edited back in the day, they got rid of not only they get rid of the lake scene where you finds out she's not a boy.
gorgeous body.
Yeah,
by the way.
and they also got rid of the rock slide scene for some reason. Probably because of time.
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah. So I was like,
edited for TV for time and content.
I mean, I can understand getting rid of the lake scene, but getting rid of the rock slide scene, it's like that's like the most epic part of the movie, almost for me at least. You know, because it shows that he's like, oh yeah, I did it, and he's like, oh crap, what? Stop.
Pixel, your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are it's decent. When are we going to play Dungeons and Dragons? Let's have some fun, guys. You know.
I want to play Dragonslayer. Get my laser disc out.
There are places where I think that's free if you look online. I don't mean if you go surfing or sailing the seas. I mean
Dragonslayer, the game from 1983, is available through Steam. If you have Steam, you can play on PC. Fun game, but challenging.
You have to know the patterns, and you would have to buy the monthly magazines that would come out that would have the walkthrough. Otherwise, you wouldn't know the pattern. And it's one of those things like Pac-Man. That's not a skill game; it's the pattern recognition. If you know it, that was this thing back then too. How much volume of information could you remember?
I watched Nolan North play it on Retro Replay. He's like, "What the hell is with this game?" And they get it so far, and he's like, "I'm done. I've wasted 20 minutes on this. Okay, one more round."
Yeah, it's that kind of game. I tried playing it so many times that if you might remember it, Rob, Disney Quest.
Absolutely, Disney Quest.
Yes, I love Disney Quest. It was great. But they had machines that had Dragonslayer. I could never get past the first part. Ever.
Well, something would blink that would tell you where to go, and the modern day equivalent, I was like, if you're playing, say, Dying Light 2 or some other video games, not just with parkour, but where to go, and you don't know because the graphics is so realistic, they'll have something painted a certain color, typically yellow or blue, and you're like, oh, I just go there. And so back then, video games and the design, I can't stress enough the crossover, not only with Don Bluth doing the hand cell animation for Dragonslayer, but the fact that it was the first 50-cent game, and it wasn't pinball, and it wasn't all the other stuff that's been out there
and
for
the
years.
Colors, the animation,
it's so beautiful to look at with those hand cells, and that richness you don't necessarily see a lot today. You see the 3D modeling in current animated films rather than the hand cell crafted ones. And if you go back and look at like The Secret of Them or this or some others, The Rescuers, I think is another one, you're going to be like, it's just so rich to see it, whether it's on standard def or regular TV or super high def today, man, they still hold up.
Austin,
I'm sorry. I realized I wasn't talking about Dragonslayer. I was talking about Dragonslayer.
Yeah.
I hate Dragonslayer.
Yeah, Austin P is bringing out my experience too. Trying to play it, and then it's like, after that, the beauty of YouTube, someone uploaded the perfect playthrough of Dragonslayer, and I watched it, and I was like, I know the story now, and you can appreciate the animation. The fact that it was made by ex-Disney guys too, so there was a lot of love put into it.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Dragonslayer, 1981 Disney film. Check it out. Definitely worth watching. Very spirited conversation. A lot of people should really appreciate that too. Thank you guys for letting everybody else know.
Thank you, Vigo. Command me, master. Sorry. It's the same guy in Ghostbusters 2, okay?
Yeah, that's right. I've forgotten about that already. Yeah, I have no idea what we're doing next Sunday. We've got a short list, and we also have a short list Tuesday when RDV and I will be tackling something. Maybe we'll be in a Ninja Canon classic type mood, or maybe not. We'll find out Tuesday night, 8 p.m. EST here on the Xtreme Movie Show. Thanks, guys, for watching and listening. Have a good night, and as always, stay extreme.
Also, leave a comment after the stream. Let us know what your favorite part was.
Dragonslayer is a Disney production. Oh boy.
It's not a Quinn Martin production, and
not a Dan Curtis production.
Good night, all. Consumed by passions like